And I've said many times in some of the rooms that I teach, the only difference between you and me is I've done this for 13 years, if you could believe that. This is going to be my 13th full year. And I didn't switch careers. I didn't call it quits halfway through. Luckily, I never had to find a full-time job to supplement my time and income. I just stuck to it. And I think focus is one of the key takeaways that you could probably take away from today, and we'll talk more about that. Let's talk about step by step. If you were to start, your mission is to get more listings. How do we start? Where do we go? You know, there's so many things. There's so many ways to, the luxury of our industry and also the detriment is there's just so many ways that you could run your business and get business that we could easily get distracted and not focused, you know, deep into one or two or three avenues and focus and stick to it. But let's start. I want to give you some context first before I start, just so you know a little bit about us. And I didn't always have stats to share with sellers and buyers and, you know, agents to kind of justify our position in the market, but now we do because we worked hard at it. But just to share with you, our market share is in South City. So I just want to share in South City, all residential properties from 2020 to this year to date. We have listed 91 and sold listings in South City. The next person 16, 13, 9.5, 9.5, 8.5. Two of the top 5 in this list are discount agents. Obviously Redfin and someone that we know very well that's number 2 on this list. In all of San Mateo County, in terms of all residential from the same time frame, 2020 mid-year to year-to-date now, we are currently number 4 in listings sold in San Mateo County, and every single one of the top people above me, 1, 2, and 3, they all discount. So you're learning from someone that doesn't advertise discount, that takes and sells listings. So this is your opportunity to ask any questions because I built it ground up, just like you guys probably are. I had no parents that were real estate agents. I had no cousins, no relatives that were in this industry. In fact, I started right out of college and I had to figure it out myself. And along the way, we met some good, I met some good mentors, and I've surrounded myself with great team members to be able to get these, right? But in the beginning, step by step, right? I didn't have this. I couldn't go in a listing consultation and say, hey guys, we're number 4. And in South City, we're number 1, so that's why you should work with me. Nowadays, it's a little easier. What I will say is everything is a little easier. I was just talking to someone about social media and building an audience, and people come to you once you have an audience, but breaking through that threshold of having an audience, getting the audience, building a niche takes a lot of time and effort up front with no immediate signs of reward. And us as humans, we're so conditioned nowadays to seek gratification right now when we post something or when we feel like eating something. We have the luxury of eating Japanese if we want Japanese today, or if we want Mediterranean, we can go get it. But this is a very long, drawn out, you have to be patient in the sense that you have to continue doing activities even if you don't see results. So one of the key things is you want to make sure that you can measure your day-to-day. At the end of the day, what can you measure and what can you reflect on that you can consider a win? Now, even I don't expect an escrow every single day. Maybe every week at this point. I would love an escrow, right? On the listing side specifically. But as we know, business is seasonal. As we know, relationships take time to build. As we know, our activities today actually help us 3 to 9 months out from today. So how patient are you willing to be? Because I can say that is probably the number 1, if not top 3, things that will dictate if you succeed in getting listings, and not only getting listings, winning them, servicing them, and having happy sellers to refer other listing opportunities. So, but I share this with you because I think this is important for you to have some context. I'm not just some guy that took 2 listings and I'm speaking in front of you like Clubhouse was a couple years back, if you guys are on Clubhouse. But there's some context here, and I'm happy to share how we were able to do it. But I'll unshare this just so I have my notes. So why listings? Clearly you guys think listings are important, because I could have come here and talked about a buyer course too. Who would be here to learn about buyers? Hopefully all of you, but listings is a little different. So why listings? Maybe we can get some feedback from you. What is your perception of the value of a listing? or building a listing business. Who's taken and sold at least 3 listings in this room? Cool. Maybe 1/5 of the room. So a lot of us are striving to get maybe our first, our second, our third, and successfully sell it and have happy clients, right? But why listings? What have you heard from some of the productivity coach here, from the team leader here, from Deason, from Alex Ty, from Rumana, from these people that are taking listings? What's the value of listings? Yes?
It gives you more exposure.
Exposure.
To the broader market.
Okay. What's the difference in exposure between getting a buyer and a listing?
Because when you have a listing, people are coming to you.
That is true.
Open houses, you're advertising an actual product.
That is true.
And they see how you present a product. You're presenting yourself in a lot of different ways to a much broader market than walking through with a buyer who's going to tell their friends about you.
That is absolutely true. You have so many more opportunities to put a sign in the yard, host an open house, flyer an area, because you do have a valid reason to talk to people. Obviously, your name is tied to the MLS once you post it, and it syndicates across all the websites. And who's a listing agent? It's your name, right? You get so much more exposure as a listing agent than helping a buyer. Not to say that buyers are not worthy to represent. We should, right? We should have a diversified business. But listings get more listings, and also buyers walk in the door. And the one thing that, if you're an experienced agent and you get listings, and you'll know, is buyer agents are begging you to take their offer. No matter how shitty this market has been, it's still been a competitive seller's market, and people want you to take their offer because they want their clients to win. So from a psychology standpoint, you have the leverage. You have the power. You dictate terms, right? And if you're a good agent like Romana and some of the other people in this room, you will negotiate a really good deal for your client and leverage that fact. So that is the power, one reason why listings are higher leverage, and there's more opportunity that come from listings. What else comes to mind?
Money.
Money. What do you mean by that? Because we make money from buyers too.
Yeah, but you just have better control of your income when you have listings.
I agree with that. And let's look at the stats. Even in the shittiest market in the last 18 months, the close rate of every listing that we've signed is over 95%. The moment we sign a listing or we get the nod and we high five with a client, it's almost a guaranteed paycheck. Yes, we have to work it, we have to prep it, we have to satisfy the seller's needs, we have to negotiate a good deal, we have to show the property. There's so many things that you do for a listing, or so many things that our team does nowadays, right? Not necessarily just the agent, but you definitely, it's almost like a guaranteed paycheck. Rather, compared to a buyer that you help, of course, there's friends, there's relatives, there's people you meet at open houses, there's people that reach out to you online and you earn their trust, but there's a higher fallout rate of a buyer either choosing not to buy, either working with someone else. A seller could always do that too, but I would say once you are able to convey your value to a seller at an appointment and you secured a listing, there's a 95% close rate. When you convey the value to a buyer at a buyer consultation, and who has the practice of signing an exclusive agreement here? Cool. And that's the minority of people. So majority of times after a buyer consultation, it's kind of meeting the minds, and the close rate for that is pretty low on average, I would say. And that's why you need to have more conversations, generate more buyer leads to be able to actually have more money at the end of the day if you're working buyers, let's say, compared to sellers. Not to say that it's not worth it, but there is benefit to buyers, and that is, we've tracked, it takes 3 months from meeting the average buyer to putting them in contract. Do you know what the average is for a listing? Romana might know these stats. If you take out consistent listings, you might know. Every team is different too, so.
10 days, 15 days it sells.
Right. Romana is correct in terms of the market exposure. It doesn't take too much time, especially because it's been still a seller's market as much as there's less buyers and rates are up. But if you include building a relationship with people and capturing their contact, for us it was 6 months. 6 months on average for a seller to shake hands for the first time, walking at an open house or in farming, to signing the listing agreement. But the one thing that we tend not to calculate in that is, on average, I would say the preparation takes a month, depending on the type of listing, the condition, the circumstances. Do they have to move out? Is it vacant? Is it a trust sale, right? Then it takes 2 weeks roughly to get in contract, a couple days to negotiate, and another 30-day escrow. No wonder we gravitate towards buyers because they're more immediate, potentially, for income. Listings take 6 months plus a month of prep, 7, plus 2 weeks, plus another month. That's about, rounded up, 9 months until you get paid. So if you go door knock today, even if you have a great conversation with one person in an hour, they might not be in a position to sell. And on average, if 3 months compared to 9 months to get paid, who's patient enough for that? Unless you have a pipeline of buyers and sellers you're already closing, you're probably not going to depend on a 9-month paycheck down the road. And hence why it is really hard to focus on listings. So we have to prove to ourselves to get to that point, right? Which means we have to have a pipeline first. So the pipeline could be filled with anyone, buyers and sellers, but once you get more comfortable, like you have predictability in your income, then talk to me, talk to Lyman, talk to the productivity coach. Hey, how can I start farming? Talk to Alex, right? Talk to Decent. My wife lives in Decent's farm, and parents always say, hey, there's this Asian guy, kind of tall in a suit, breaking a sweat during the summer, knocking on my door. So you don't see that today, but he's still making calls. That's what it took years ago. The hard part about, I'll tell you, most top listing agents, most top agents in general in the Bay Area that are listing heavy, put it into work some years ago. They might not have to work as hard now, but the hard part is, as new agents, you don't see that. You don't see that anymore.
It's still hard, it just might not be as physical as...
Yeah, you know what it is? It's supplemented by money now. At least a lot of it. It's either time or money. We're going to talk about those two today. You either have time or money to spend. In the beginning of your career, you probably have more time until you get really busy, but that's the trap. You get busy where you can't spend your time anymore, but do you have a plan in place to spend money? If you don't, then that's why your business is going to be a roller coaster. Yeah, Alfredo?
Within that that time span of the 6 or 9 months, is there data in terms of how many touches?
Great question. Frequency is very important. I will tell you, whether it's touches by flyer or physically, like face-to-face, there's a difference in quality of touches too. So it's hard to measure that. Quality and quantity definitely play in your favor. What I will share is the more the better. The more that you are able to come from contribution and value, and in attempt to, the better it is. But realize that if you farm 100 doors today, 95% of them are going to think your marketing is trash and it's not helpful and it's not valuable. But you're there to find the 5 people that say, wow, this is actually helpful. I needed these stats to reaffirm that why I should be a homeowner or whatever, right? But as long as you attempt to provide value in everything that you do, eventually the 1 in 12 pieces to this one door, they're going to start to realize, number 1, you're not going to go away. Number 2, you are coming from a good place. You're not just asking for a deal. By the way, no one sells because of free staging. No one sells because of discount either. So when you are competing against other agents and you're farming and you see things that are left over in the mail or someone that left over on the doorsteps that's offering free staging or that's offering 1.5% off on listing, you should not be intimidated. No one's going to sell because of that. Why do people sell?
They have a need to.
They have a need. And how do you identify that need? You ask them, but oftentimes when you're farming, only 1/3 open. And if the 1/3 opens, most people aren't going to give you a positive response. So in fact, they will self-identify when they have a need. And are you the person they think of? And that's where the frequency and the quality come into play. Because if your messaging is always about being helpful, giving market stats, offering, like painting a story of how you help someone else that might be similar in situation, and you're constantly every month at the very least exposing them to you and your message, guess who they're going to call? Are they going to call the guy that's naked with boxing gloves and said, I beat COVID? Probably not. They might, because he's memorable. There is validity to certain marketing if it's memorable. But question for you, Is it memorable for the right reasons? If you come from a place of value, you will be memorable for the right reasons. So when they call you, guess what? There's even less friction in you needing to sell yourself. Because you've already proved a point when you're consistent. You're consistent, you show up, they expect you, you're providing something of value. There's something of value that they receive on a monthly basis already. As long as I show up as a person at the first call and a consultation as equal, if not more valuable than what I've sent, you've already validated yourself in their eyes. And the other thing I want to share with you is, whether it be a buyer or seller, if they have an objection with you, our natural inclination is we become fearful because, ooh, they're challenging me. They're giving me something to contest. I don't know what I'm going to say. Some of these objections I've never encountered before. But I want you to adopt a different mindset. They're asking you because there's an opportunity to work with you. It's your opportunity to prove. Because what's worse is they don't ask you. If they don't ask you, great, it's great meeting you. Yeah, I'll talk to my husband. I'll figure out what we want to do. And you never hear from them again. You rather them ask you the questions. But with the anticipation of them asking certain questions, and you have certain answers for every single question, what you realize, as some of these top agents have realized too, is you're going to encounter the same frickin' dialogue every single time. They're going to ask the same questions to every agent. What's your commission rate? Are you willing to give me a concession? I want to list at X higher price than what you recommend. What's your dialogue? That's why we practice. That's why you need partners. That's why you need great scripts. That's why you need to continue coming to these classes. I saw on the picture, I think there's other top agents teaching at these. They all have different dialogues. You have to find the one that matches your style, and that comes out naturally for you to adopt, right? Not every script that Romana uses is going to fit for me, is going to fit for you, but we are winning in the marketplace. Find winners in the marketplace, learn from them. What are the other opportunities? Let's think about it. How am I doing in time? 28, cool. Marketing opportunities we talked about, more control of your own time, per hour compensation, which I'll highlight. Intimate market knowledge. If you're listing and pricing properties consistently and seeing how the market reacts and how much foot traffic you have and how the positioning affects people's feedback in terms of what they like, what they don't like, guess what? You're going to get better. Listings, get more listings. We talked about that too. I would say maybe 15% of our listings that we get are because people see that we had something else that are close to them and we represented it well. So it gets more listings. Now let's talk about compensation per hour. Who has ambitions to or already has a team? You guys have ambitions to build a team? If not, maybe you guys aren't exposed to the value of a team or having one, but I'll share a little bit with you. I'll tell you what I do for a listing nowadays. And I'll break it down by the hour of my hourly rate. And that's the value of a listing that I wanted to express. So, all right, so my average listing price is 1.3 million. If someone could do the math, what's 2.5% of 1.3? Is it 37.5?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Wow, humble brag right there. I'm just kidding. Good job, man.
32 grand, sorry.
32 grand. All right, cool. 32. All right. Now, there's a lot of other things that go into getting and securing an opportunity, but I'm going to break down my time. I get a call. It usually starts with a call. Or there's a request on email through our website, and I call someone. That call is usually 30 minutes. I'll round up. My initial call is 30 minutes. So I'm going to write 30. I'm just going to add up the minutes. The next thing that happens is I create a Google Calendar and invite my listing coordinator, and she prepares my package. The day of, I show up to the office, and I look at the folder, and I say, this is everything I need. I might pull up some stats on my computer so I can share with the seller when I get to the appointment. Let's say it's another 30 minutes of prep. What's your average length of a listing consultation? For those that have taken it. Let's say what was that? Okay, let's round up.
And at least an hour.
Let's say an hour and a half. So that is 90 minutes for me. Let's just say you spend a little bit more time up front. Oftentimes, this might be something that you can capitalize because every good listing agent has a weakness, but I'm not a one-call closer. Do you know what that means?
You get them to sign it.
I usually don't get them to sign at the first consultation. Is that good or bad? It's up to your business practice, but for me it works because I always have a trial close. I'm lining up certain vendors, I'm getting them certain answers, whether it's tax related for capital gains, whether it's legal related, who's on title. I usually will recommend that, hey, let's get clarity on where you're going first, your tax implications, your legal implications, before you sign with me, because I can guarantee you the other two agents you're talking to, do you feel a sense of like you want to hesitate like working with them because they feel pretty high pressure or they're trying to make you do things that you don't want to do? Do you feel a little bit of that? Yeah. Well, I'm not here to do that to you. I'm here to get you all the information to make sure you're confident in your decision before you work with any agent, not just me. And I respect the fact that you are doing your due diligence to talk to multiple, right? So what does that say about me?
Confidence.
You're looking at their best interest.
You're looking at their business.
That, exactly. That's going to come across, and eventually you're going to win. You might be a one-call close, like 20%er, but you know, by the time that you go from interview to how often you get a signature, it's pretty high. I can share that with you. But let's say I don't do anything up until pricing from that point because my listing coordinator gets it signed, preps it, communicates with the vendors, talks with the seller, helps with disclosures. Unless there's really tough questions, I will step in. Pricing conversation, what do? 15 minutes, I pull stats, I send a text, jump on a 5-minute call. Let's just round up. It's another 30 minutes. And I price. 30 minutes. I don't really host my own open houses anymore. So the next time I show up is during offer review. My listing coordinator preps offers, puts it in a folder for Google Drive, and has a spreadsheet of the main terms. So when I present it, it's easier for the seller to comprehend instead of looking through documentation. Because if there's 5 offers, 10 offers, that's like hundreds of pages, right? At least that's my style. I want to simplify for them. That conversation, 30 minutes. And then I pass it to the closing coordinator who communicates with everyone to make sure that it closes on time. The next thing I do is a 30-second text message saying congratulations and a 1-minute phone call saying congratulations. I'm not even going to add that in there. So how much time have I spent? Hour, 3.5 hours for a revenue of $32,000. So what do I do with my time? Per listing, is it a coincidence that I can list 50 listings a year?
Seems like the listing coordinator does a lot of work.
I love my listing coordinator. She's not here though. I don't think, yeah, she's not here. But yes, but guess what? Guess what? First is I have to earn the opportunity to hire a listing coordinator. I don't spend too much time. So what do? What do I do with my time?
Lead gen.
Is anyone tired of this guy saying lead gen in this office? Because I'm fairly certain he says that a lot. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, when we get bored of doing the same thing over and over, we change our method or we distract ourselves with something that isn't productive. It's actually really simple to succeed. You just got to stick to one thing or two things, and that's it. Because at this point, I want to show you something. This is a call that happens when someone calls me, so I pick it up. My preparation is dictated on the day that I have a consultation. My consultation obviously is pre-booked. I schedule that. My pricing conversation is put on my calendar by my listing coordinator. If it's 2 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 6 weeks out, I just show up that day, I look at my calendar, oh, I got a pricing conversation today. This is also, the last part of negotiations is also put on my calendar for me. I don't do that. I don't frickin' do too much. I've simplified my life to be able to list a lot of properties. You can build that too. Like I said, when I first joined this office, I didn't even have this cubicle. I used to go to that training room and just made calls in the morning. Showed up every day at 8, made calls, stayed in the office. I actually dressed up more professionally than I do nowadays. Paulette remembers that.
Let's see the suit.
I don't miss the suit. They don't fit anymore. But so far, we're good. Value of listing. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about a concept I haven't talked about before, even with my team members, because I was thinking about this a lot. So they're even going to maybe learn something from this. Now let's talk about how to get listings. Because that's probably, I mean, we know the value of a listing already. High leverage, income is almost guaranteed, and it gives you more exposure, and it gets more listings, and buyers come to you, and agents beg you. But let's talk about how to get more listings. What ideas do you guys have?
Farming,
What does that mean?
door knocking, sending flyers.
But do you have to door knock when you farm?
No?
No,
You don't. You don't. What else?
I like open
I like
houses.
open houses.
Open houses are great too. The only detriment of open houses, there's no guarantee how many people step in and if they're a seller. But you do get sellers. I don't disagree. It's FaceTime. It's a one-on-one time. You don't have to knock on a door. The friction is less for you, so it's easier.
And then you know, well, then you farm, and you keep in contact with them.
Here's,
And eventually,
yes.
you might get something.
Here's a problem with open houses though. You cannot predict when you're gonna host and where you're gonna host.
True.
So unless you're like Romana in Foster City, you always get listings in a certain area. Of course, you're gonna continue to get exposure within that geographic area. What else? Your sphere. There's pro and con of sphere. They already trust you. It's easier to convert, usually, but I wouldn't treat it any less that you have to go through the motions of justifying your value. But the problem with sphere as well is you don't get to choose where they live or where they're selling or where they own property. Social media. And I said earlier, probably less than 90% of my business comes from social media, let alone listings. Although you see me, if you follow me, I post a lot. It's probably more so for recruiting than anything, to be honest. But I don't get much business from social media. There's a difference between social media and social proof, though, like Yelp and Google and all that. So if you rank high and people find you online, clearly it could be buyer or seller. But also that, you cannot dictate when, where, type of listing, price point, all that. So the only thing I heard so far is farming, that you can predictably get listings in a certain area. And I see this is also another way. FSBOs, expireds, circle dialing are also effective ways. Just make sure you scrub, or Lyman's going to kill you. So.
Yeah, I will have a conversation with you if you get in trouble again.
Yes.
We didn't get in trouble, I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Somebody
So
else.
I'm going to give you a concept. What do you guys track on a daily basis to measure if you're winning right now? My team should know this very well. Alex knows this very well because I see his team calling. Deason probably knows this. What are you guys tracking on a daily basis?
Calls and contacts.
Calls. So I'm going to categorize calls as attempts. How many attempts are you making per day?
How many people answer? How many people you actually calls and contacts?
And that leads to contacts. So an attempt could be a knock on a door, could be a call, could be an event and you talk to someone. And then a contact obviously is a live conversation or a back and forth text, message on Instagram, whatever. And then eventually, what do you want to accomplish with a contact if there's an opportunity? Because you don't want to sell hard unless there's a need. The appointment. Can I tell you the problem with this? This is all dependent on your time. Attempts require your time. Clearly, leading to the contacts and the appointment, it requires your time. For experienced agents, it's not just time that we spend nowadays. We have a limited resource of time. We should obviously still spend it very wisely. It's more important than money. But we also can invest in our business once you get to that point where you make some money. there's actually something above attempts that we should be tracking. Who spent money on Google AdWords or Facebook ads? Impressions. We should be tracking impressions. So, what did I just draw? I drew 2 lines. What does this look like? A funnel. The more impressions you make, the more attempts, up calls maybe, even without your effort of time, the more contacts you will be able to make, and the more appointments you could potentially book. The concept of impressions is a bit newer because nowadays when you spend money on Facebook, for example, it's about how many deliveries has your video or your thing made, watch time, and eventually they submit their information. But us farmers in this room that have gotten market share, how many impressions have you made in the marketplace on a monthly basis? And if we track that and we compare it to a brand new agent, I don't think it's by mistake that there's a correlation to how many impressions you make to how big of a business you have. Regardless your database size, which is important, how many calls you make every day, which is important. But let's talk about impressions real quick. Mail. You don't see this in the office. How much mail does this guy send? I spend. Romana send. Alex send. Or a new agent. I will tell you, as a new agent, you probably send 0 mail because you don't want to spend money just yet because you haven't justified the cost. You want to skill up first so that when you do get the call, you can convert it, right? So you're probably spending 0. Or how many pieces? Let's track touches or impressions. So at least for my farm, there's 18,000 addresses residential, 16,000 are sellable units occupied by owner, 2,000 are absentee. For owner occupants, I use Everydoor Direct, so I send it to all 18,000 2 times a month. So 18,000 times 2, that's 36,000 impressions. I'm just going to start making a list per month. 36,000 impressions per month. Absentees I send once a month. There's 2,000. That's 2,000 impressions. My database is 21,000 people. I send a newsletter on a weekly basis. That's times 4 times 21,000. I send an email to agents one time. I'm just talking about general impressions, not just listings at this point. Times 10,000 agents, I send a marketing piece per month. This does not include my personal calls I make, my farming exercises I go through, the events that I go through and teach at or have conversations. Let me ask you something. How many impressions am I making in a month, whether I spend my time or money, and how many does that equate to in a year? That is the difference that no one talks about. All you see is Deason and Alex and me making calls or picking up phone calls or responding to emails. That's because we are reinvesting in our business. You want to get there if you're a new agent. It takes a little bit of time, confidence, skills, but you will get there. And you have guidance here. You have some people to talk to. Your impressions initially are dictated by your time. And the unfortunate thing is we are not consistent. Let's be real. It's hard for us to be accountable to showing up every day and making calls. Especially when 2 and 3 people don't pick up, and let's say half of those people say they don't have a need, and maybe 1 in 5 of them are really rude, so you get beat up over the phone, and you're like, screw this, I don't want to do it. That's what at least our mind tells us. But you just have to build the discipline and keep doing it because you're looking for that one person per day that's going to say, hey, look, I'm actually interested. That's why this business is tough. That's why you put people like me, the people on the list I share, the top agents in this room on a pedestal. Like, they've done something that has yielded consistent business. We cannot see the track, like the history of how they got there, but there's just something I truly respect about these people. Because until you get into this business, you really don't know how hard it is. And as much as you see a really nice smile when you walk in this office in Paulette, which we all love, that alone is not going to create productivity in your lives unless you do the work. But that's necessary. You need to fill your cup. And what I will say is Paulette definitely makes an impact in this office. So, yeah. So, how many impressions are you going to make this month? So maybe a homework item for you is when you have a glass of wine this afternoon or this evening, what can I do to make impressions? Am I willing to spend money? Am I willing to obviously spend my time? Because if you're not, you might as well find a full-time job somewhere else. It will require that. Not to scare you, but this is the reality of our business. Now, the other day I shared some stats. The average top agent in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County have 40% less business right now compared to last year. So you are not the only one that is struggling in this industry. But I will give you some mindset things to think about so that you feel like a champ and you are on the right track. So we'll talk about that. Now, step by step, what would I do if I was starting brand new? First is pick a farm. I'll give you the tips to pick a farm. I don't have this written down. I shared with Lyman. I have an 8 kind of module course written down on a Google Doc. I'll share with you guys as you guys have come through. How to pick a farm. Pick a farm, study the competition. Do the top 3 have over 10% market share? Because if they do, it's a very steep battle. Pick a market that does not, or a subsegment of a farm that does not have the top 3 people having more than 10%. It'll make your life a hell of a lot easier to gain market share. Secondly, look at absentee owner-occupied ratios. A more affluent market usually has greater than 80% owner-occupied ratios, and something that's closer to downtown that's more mixed use probably has about 75 or less. That will dictate when you go out in your farms, are you talking more often to an owner or to a renter? Who do we want to talk to?
And renters for buyers.
Yeah, luckily, you know.
50% of people in Burlingame are renting their houses.
That was a trick question because I was going to say equal housing, we need to talk to everyone. But we want to make sure that if we are intentional with our time, we talk to homeowners because they have something to sell. The other thing that you want to keep track of is turnover rate, which is less important because there's like, it's all about the same. And barrier to entry. South City is windy, it's hilly, it's often cold, there's gates up, people might be rude. Guess what? You're not going to do it, so I will. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If it's easier, if it's more affluent, it might be more luxurious. The listing price might be higher, but guess what? You're going to face more competition. So pick your poison. Which one do you want? I would look at those. Once you figure out a farm, let's say it's 500, I would recommend 500 to 2,000. Let's look at some ratios. If you farm without knocking, depending on the lottages, if let's say just average 5,000 square foot per lot, you probably could average 75 doors per hour. If you have a farm of 1,500 doors, that is 20 hours in a month for you to touch every door one time with a piece of mail or a piece of something that you drop off. 20 hours in a month. Each week you have 40 working hours. Let's assume you have 4 weeks. That's 160 hours in a week.
80 hours a week, I'm sorry.
Huh?
It should be 80 hours a week.
Sorry, 80 hours. Is it 80 hours a week? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. But if you can't dedicate 20 hours a month to go out to just give people your stuff, you're not committed to your farm. You have to do that. If you don't want to spend USPS money, and I mean, it's easier, right? It's guaranteed they're going to receive it. But what I will tell you is when you single out your piece and you leave it and it's snug and it's under the doormat or somewhere, they single it out, they have to pick it up, they have to throw it away. When it goes up with every other mail piece, they're going to see someone in boxing gloves, they're going to see, you know, the Safeway advertisement, they're going to see all this other stuff. They might even see Alex Ty's like marketing Romana's, right? Depending on where you farm. But when you single out your piece, it's more impactful, it's more memorable, and they might think that, you know, this guy's really annoying. But eventually they're going to come to appreciate you because you're the only consistent one. Question?
Yeah. So you mentioned 75 doors per hour. Are you just going and leaving?
Correct.
Or are you trying to have conversations with?
If you're just leaving, I would say 75 per hour is very manageable. If you're having conversations, I would say 30 or less, depending on if you're a high I. As we know, we've studied disc assessment here. If you're high I, you're going to have a hard time breaking out from conversations. If you're high D, you might be a little bit more intentional. If you're high S or C, you might not even go out and farm. So you're going to need a little more motivation there, or build a schedule where you go out consistently. Now, I'll give you a tip. Websites are allowed to advertise anyone's listing as long as you advertise who it's listed by. Broker is Coldwell Banker, KW, Compass, Green Banker, whatever, right? Same goes with your flyers and postcard. Your job is not to show that you list a lot, because let's be real, if you're starting a farm, you probably haven't listed a property yet. But your job is to educate, which means as long as you display who the listing agent or the broker is, you can educate people with your flyer on what this listed for, what it sold for, condition of property, nice photo. But you know what's going to end up happening? If you're so consistent in sending the same mail piece, that's the basic. There's a lot of other value pieces you can send. But if you're consistent in sending something like that, guess what they're going to assume? You're the one that's listing all these homes. Sold in Burlingame. Blah, 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 sold. All these pictures, nice. Little font. Broker that listed it and sold it was this, but your face is at the bottom, because they always end at the bottom.
Did you always use the same marketing piece?
You know, in the past, when I didn't have market share and I didn't have as much creativity and I just knew I needed to get out there, and the thing is, the less friction there is for you to get out there, the more likely you're going to go out there. So I just printed the same thing over and over. July, South San Francisco solds. August, South San Francisco solds. September, South San Francisco solds. Eventually, I started adding, I had a good coach at Maps, shredding event on one side, another side, South San Francisco sold. Picnic, and then South San Francisco sold. And eventually, I started getting listings. So one side was listings, and South San Francisco solds. Sometimes you can also just do, Burlingame planning website. Oh, what's being built? Oh, there's a new project coming up. One side is 3 most recent projects approved by Burlingame City Planning, and the other side is solds. So guess what you are painting a picture of when you send a variation of those? This guy's a community guy, he's hosting events, he's friendly, he's really knowledgeable, he has stats, and he knows exactly what's going on in my city. I think that's the guy, when I have a need, I might call. Not the guy, by the way, not the guy that advertises 3.68%. Because once again, people do not list because you discount. People do not list because you're the top agent. People do not list because you offer free staging. People do not list because you look good in your photo or it's your infant photo. It doesn't matter. People list because they have a need. You just want to be top of mind when they're there. You want to be memorable for the reason of providing value. That's the content that you should have. Sorry.
I was going to say, so your content became sort of a newsletter style.
Yeah, and as long as you attempt to come from value every single time and you're consistent, that's the goal. You can have conversations, like maybe once you muster up a little more confidence after flyering for a month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, go have conversations. Tip from me is I print out, or I pay for, Giants calendars, 49er calendars, Warrior calendars, an annual calendar, which our videographer takes photos of. And that means I'm intentionally in my farm 4 times a year. And the value that I provide is not just what's on there, but it's totally unrelated to real estate. So, yeah.
For when you're talking about 80% owner occupied and 10% market share, do you also look at velocity?
Yeah, I think that was turnover rate. And I look less at turnover rate just because it's going to be pretty consistent across the board. I would say the biggest thing you should look for is competition. Like if I was going in Foster City, I probably don't even want to because there's someone that is doing a really good job there already, right? Or if you're going in South City, hey, guess what? You're going to see at every listing consultation, my package there. And I'm going to show up in my stats, right? Not to say you shouldn't, but it's just going to be a little harder. I don't want to discourage anyone from doing anything, but you want to be smart. You want to be a smart business person and pick an area that you feel you can consistently get market share from. And so here's 50% is getting the call. The next 50% is competing against other people. If you get the calls because you're consistent, that's halfway there. You've gotten the call. Now you have to show up and you have to have a great presentation. And because you don't have many presentations to give because you're just starting, that is really hard to get good at. But you know what people are looking for? How do you build that? Partially. Authenticity is definitely. You show consistency, authenticity. You show them you care. You're a high integrity person. At the end of the day, these stats mean nothing if you're a slimy salesperson, if you are not there to do the right thing. So as long as you show up as a person that's authentic, that you ask before you offer a solution, because maybe there is no solution at this time. They were curious. But if you go in there with a full presentation, you waste 60 minutes of their time with your 10 bullet point conversation of a listing presentation, guess what? You wasted an hour too. But yeah, good questions. Now let's work on some mindset stuff because I want to be respectful of time. We're already at 12, so I'm going to run through this. Environment influences behavior. You curate that. That's why you're in this office. You get to pick who you spend time with. I do too. If Lyman's distracting you, tell him. If I'm distracting you, tell him. Tell me, right? If I'm conducive to help you get more listings because you're sitting here and you took some notes, great, you should spend more time with me. Spend time where you choose. If I challenge everyone to pull out their phone right now, and it's 12 o'clock and it's halfway through the day, which apps show up on your most spent time? Where you spend your time dictates your results. Let's take a holistic approach. It's not just when you decide to work in this business. It's also when you're sitting on a couch, when you're about to wake up, you pull out your phone, you're spending time on social media. Trust me, I'm guilty of that too. But you can be a little more intentional. Environment. Design your environment. Atomic Habits, great book. Conversion for buyers versus sellers. I talked about the time frames. You have to be patient. Focus. Time allocation dictates results. We just talked about that. Haven't mets versus have mets. We all want to build a business of referral, repeat, sphere. But guess what? That group is smaller than the group that you don't know people. The haven't mets is a huge group. How can you add more of these people to your have mets and add them to your CRM and work systems? You cannot build relationships with everyone, or maybe you can in your farm. But guess what? There's always going to be someone that has a stronger relationship than you. So when a sign goes up in your yard of your farm, stop kicking yourself and being hard on yourself. All it means is someone had a stronger relationship with them. You did your best, but did you spend hours of being a friend, or were you chosen to be their family member at times? No. So there's certain things you can control, certain things you can't control. You can control how much time you're in your farm, and the reality is you cannot be a friend with everyone. You're not going to relate to everyone. So when a sign goes up in your yard, that's okay. It just means that congrats to them, they had a stronger relationship than I did. I will still, with my time, build the relationships I choose and be happy with the way you spend your time. If the barrier to entry is higher, that's a good thing. We kind of talked about that. It's going to defeat in the minds of other people before they even start. Higher price point, more competition. We talked about that. They have an objection. They actually want to work with you. We talked about that. Tough market, this is better for you in the long run. Because why? The reality is, let's say 30% of this room is not going to be here in 2 years. That's the reality. Is it going to be you? I don't know. Depends how you spend your time. You should be so intentional with your time. Because how many people have families here? Probably a lot of us. I want to make sure I don't waste your time. That's why I came prepared. That's why Lyman chose maybe someone that actually knows what he's talking about. But of course, you want to be very careful with your time. Because that's the great equalizer. I've been saying that a lot. Because you and I have the same amount of time. I've just spent it more in real estate than you have. And that maybe correlates to results. There's no surprise there. Interest rates are high. It just means that more people are delaying their move. So that's why your dialogue shouldn't be, do you want to sell today? It should be, hey, Simon Sinek, right? Hey, I understand this might not be the most advantageous time, but people's plans change all the time. And I want to be there to answer your questions and have the opportunity to be your agent when you are ready to talk about that. Then they feel heard. Because what's every message on a postcard? Sell your house, 3.68%. Right? Okay. Come from value. Whether it's valuable to everyone at any given moment, the attempt is what matters. I don't know if I talked about everything I said today is going to be helpful for every single one person, but I'm fairly certain there's some things that you got to value. Maybe you'll remember that this was a pivotal moment in your career, and you can attribute a little bit to what you heard today. That would obviously make me very happy that I could contribute. Come from curiosity. Refrain from directly asking about real estate. Ask about life. Ask about just who they are. Everyone has a weakness. You can find it if you study hard enough. Intentions and integrity matter more than your pre-planned presentation. I don't care if I'm first or last. I just want the opportunity to present to show that I care about them. Learn with the intent to teach. That's how I built my team. That's foundational. Because if I learn to utilize a skill myself, I don't have to reshare it for different personalities for different purposes. And that's how I've been able to grow in my career. Less consumption, more production. 1 hour spent on social media is 1 hour not spent on reading a book. 1 hour spent having a lunch date with someone that doesn't need to buy and sell is 1 hour less spent farming your neighborhood or learning something. Simplify, don't complicate. We are very good at complicating. How can you simplify? Build a track record with yourself of habits to just simplify what you do. It's not that complicated. I literally came here, printed stuff, went out to farm. I did need a car. I did need a phone. I did need office membership. I did need my license, but all of us have that. Simply come here, pick a farm, come here, print stuff, go out and farm. Maybe find an accountability partner here and say, hey, look, today or yesterday I got these results. And the last thing I wrote is less friction, more action. Simplify will dictate whether you create reasons why you can't do it today. I didn't have a good morning. I didn't have my morning coffee. When I go work out, I have a routine. I have to take pre-workout. I have to eat a banana. I have to have my gym clothes washed. I have to have half gas in my car. I have to have, no appointment 1 hour after my workout because I have to shower. Does that sound familiar with any routines you have? The more friction you have, the less likely you're going to do something. Screw all of that. Just simplify. You're going to go out, door knock, just go out and do it. And that's it. Hopefully it was helpful. Step by step, I hope I got it started for you, and I have something I'll share with Lyman to share with you guys. So,
Amazing.
Thank you for being here. Yes.